welcome back to Vinyl Friday, where I go through my records in alphabetical order like a big nerd and talk about why I love them. The sun is shining, I'm wearing my favorite toucan socks, and we're about to start the final episode of our Electric Light Orchestra miniseries. I would argue that today's song is ELO's most well-known song, even though it only peaked at number 35 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart when it was released. The song is, of course, Mr. Blue Sky. This is a fantastic song, you guys. Let's go. Interesting though, the Wikipedia page for this song shows it also charting in various countries in 2008, 2011, 2017, and again in 2019. I think maybe the reason for that is that this is a song that has been kind of ubiquitous in pop culture for a really long time. It's featured in movies like one of the Guardians of the Galaxy ones, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I think the Super Mario Brothers movie. It was in an episode of Doctor Who, in either the opening or closing ceremony of the 2012 Olympics, I don't remember which. And most notably in an episode of American Dad entitled Fart Break Hotel. Even the Muppets have covered it. I always enjoy when the Muppets pay this channel a visit. Here's how this song was written. Jeff Lynne was trying to write the follow-up album to A New World record. He was holed up in a Swiss chalet, maybe something like this, or something like this. I often take holidays in Swiss chalets when I'm feeling a bit of writer's block. No, I don't, in case it's not abundantly apparent. The weather was crap, and he was not doing so well with the writing. Until
one day the sun came blasting out and it was all blue sky, and I could see forever, it was just beautiful, and it made me write Mr. Blue Sky.
Along with, over the next fortnight, 13 other songs that would end up on the next album. I've chosen this song because I feel like it brings together so many of the elements that we've been looking at together in the last 3 weeks with the other songs in this ELO mini-series. The other reason I've chosen it is that I've actually played it live with 2 bands. So I'll get into that. I also want to discuss today how this song is kind of, in my eyes, Jeff Lynne's love letter to the Beatles. I mean, they all are to an extent, but this one in particular. Also, how I think that this song is kind of peak Jeff Lynne. And then before we close out, I'd really like to get into why I think ELO isn't as big as it deserves to be as a band in terms of where it sits in the popular music canon. So, this song is a love letter to the Beatles. When you listen to Mr. Blue Sky, I think that you can hear the influences of so many different Beatles songs. The most obvious, of course, is the middle section of A Day in the Life, which, in case you missed it, sounds like this.
Woke up, fell out of bed.
And hey, no shame, if you didn't know the song A Day in the Life until this moment, lucky you! You have so much to discover. I envy you. But yeah, compare this to the beginning of this song. Woke up, got out of bed. You get it. There's even the panting. In A Day in the Life, there's a little bit of panting right here.
I noticed I was late.
And Jeff Lynne does the same. Bless his little heart. In case you missed that, here's a dramatic reenactment by the Muppets.
Running down the avenue.
I love those guys. Here's another example. The introduction of Paperback Writer.
Paperback writer.
Has all of these interacting, swooping vocals. This introduction is way too much to try and execute live because obviously there are a lot of things happening at the same time. And that's sort of what that last chorus sounds like as well. Like, listen to all of these moving parts in the vocals.
Hey there, Mr. Blue Sky, so pleased to be with you. Sky, look around, see what you do.
Like, if one person tried to sing that, it would sound like this. Hey there, Mr. Blue Sky, we're so pleased to be with you. Sky, look around, see what you do. Blue, everybody smiles at you. So yeah, it's got all of these intersecting, moving, harmonized vocal parts. That seems very Beatles. And what does this sound like? It sounds like Mel Evans beating his little anvil on Maxwell Silverhammer.
Clang, clang, Maxwell Silverhammer.
I love that clip. I mean, look at the delight in that man's eyes. He's having the time of his life banging on that anvil. Fun fact, they achieved this sound on this song by banging on a fire extinguisher. Now, mine doesn't make quite the same noise. His definitely makes a better clang. Oh well. The last thing that really stood out to me is that the opening chords of Mr. Blue Sky are the same as the opening chords on Yesterday. Let's get the piano correspondent to show us. Mr. Blue Sky. Sun is shining in the sky. There ain't a cloud inside. Yesterday. Yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away. If that's not clear enough, let's try this. Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. More broadly, from about Yesterday onwards, the Beatles invited symphonic traditions to get cozy with modern popular music. And that, I suppose, is the foundation of Electric Light Orchestra. A rock song sitting on a bed of strings. As John Lennon says.
It's a nice group. I call them Son of Beatles, although they're doing things that we never did, obviously. But I remember the statement they made when they first formed was to carry on from where the Beatles left off with Walrus, and they certainly did.
Another one that was stolen from the Beatles, in a sense.
No, I wouldn't call it stealing. There's little movements here, you know, that you can almost pick which songs, but you can do that with Beatle music, too, if you know where our influences came from, you know.
And to that, Paul McCartney adds.
I say, everyone was borrowing from the people they admired. So, you know, when I heard ELO, it was very what we'd been doing on Sgt. Pepper. The sort of very much what we'd been into. And so I think the first thing was, I know where he got that from.
Apparently he said this to Jeff the first time they met, which sounds to me intimidating as hell. Can you imagine you're meeting an idol, someone who's inspired you to get into music, and the first thing that they say to you is that they think you plagiarized their music. So yeah, love letter to the Beatles. Next. How did I end up covering Mr. Blue Sky with two different bands simultaneously? It was New Zealand Music Month. My band and another band that we really love working with did this double bill gig. In this sort of crossover point where my band was leaving the stage and their band was coming on, we decided that we'd do a couple of covers together. Mr. Blue Sky is one of those two songs that we chose. By our powers combined, we were a 7-piece band. That included a cajon drum, 2 guitars, bass, violin, mandolin, and ukulele, and all 7 of us were singing. And even with that, we radically had to pare down the original to successfully, I hope, pull off something resembling the original. All 7 of us were busy at just about every point in the song. As an example, let's look at this final chorus, and I will try and break down what just the vocals are doing in that final chorus. Here we go. Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. So where did we go wrong? You sort of get the idea. Everybody has a job all the time. Like there's a choir at the end of this song. That's only a few of them. Like, those ones harmonize also. And then there's the orchestral ending, because of course on the album, this song is one part of a long suite of songs about weather. We did also try and do the vocoder section with 7 vocal parts. What's a vocoder, you ask? Excellent question. I had a chat with Noah, who runs the channel Polyphonic. Excellent channel. Highly recommend you check it out. And here's how the vocoder was described on Polyphonic's episode on Mr. Blue Sky.
And we get to see one of ELO's favorite tools, the vocoder. Vocoders are a technology that digitally encode the human voice. In the context of music, this means that it can be run through synthesizers to create a unique robotic sound.
I'll leave a link in the description if you want to watch their video as well, which you should. So we tried to sing this. Of course, I think we may have overcomplicated it. I think my part was Mr. Blue Sky, Mr. Blue Sky. That's really hard to do with 6 other people singing something entirely different to you. We had a blast. This song was so much fun to take apart and try and execute with 7 people. Anyway, all of this to say that this is an immense, intricately arranged song. It sounds like this beautiful, happy-go-lucky little tune, but there is so much going on here. It's got Jeff Lynne written all over it. This song is peak Jeff Lynne. It has all of those sort of pillars of Jeff Lynne's sound, all of his trademarks. For example, great chords. We've already had a listen to the chords in the verse, and those are great chords, don't get me wrong, but check out the outro. Let's call in the piano correspondent again. Would you play us those chords, please? Ooh, I sure can. There are some astonishingly beautiful chords in this closing section of the song. I'm just gonna play them. And I'll probably make a face if I really like it. Here we go. There are 2 reasons that I find these chords beautiful. The first is that he'll be changing the chord on the top, but not changing the root note on the bottom. For instance, in the beginning of this section, the chords go like this. But we stay on this bass note. So it sounds like this. Just adds a whole lot of interest. And then we begin to step down the root note the second time round, here. Now, he could have landed here, but he lands here. It sounds incomplete. There's room for this part of the song to grow. Lovely. From here, the chords do this. And they do that twice, but the note on the bottom, again, is different the first time from the second time, which makes them sound completely different from each other. Here's the first time. She follows up with nice. The second time, that's beautiful. Interestingly, this chord, which I adore, is also used in the outro to Layla by Derek and the Dominoes. Watch. Please. To me, that's what makes that outro so good. In this case, there are so many beautiful chords in the outro. All of them are great, and they work really well together. Thanks, Jeff Lynne. It's been a pleasure. Back to you. Exquisite chords. Lovely. The way he uses strings as a counterpoint to the vocal melodies. The vocals have a melody, the strings have a melody. They're woven together. It works. I don't know how it works, I don't know how it's not too busy, but it works. Good job, Jeff. Another hallmark is how he shifts the arrangement very slightly so that the repeating elements of the song are never boring and there's always something new for your ears to play with. Let's compare the first verse with the last verse. Really simple strings, piano, bass, drums. Easy. Last verse. Never mind, I'll remember you this way. There's a choir underneath us. There's a vocal harmony to go with the lead melody, and we've added a couple of extra bars at the end with different chords to lead us into the chorus. Not the same animal at all. Sound effects. This song has the panting, it has the clanking, in the same way that Telephone Line has all of those phone sound effects. And again, like, he manages to execute that in a way that it doesn't feel super gimmicky. Well done, Jeff. Densely layered vocals. I think we've probably said enough about the vocals at this point, but suffice to say, the vocals are densely layered. Big, extremely simplistic drum fills. On Telephone Line and Livin' Thing, we looked at how Jeff Lynne uses these very high, swooping vocals that seem to recall Roy Orbison and your sweet desire. And this song is no different. Swoops! Like on Livin' Thing, we have a choir at the end, as the Muppets will demonstrate for us. And of course, as we've discussed, there's always that background of Beatles, without it sounding too derivative. On that note, it's kind of incredible to me that we've looked at 4 different Jeff Lynne songs: Evil Woman, Telephone Line, Livin' Thing, and Mr. Blue Sky. with a whole lot of things in common with each other, and yet they don't sound anything like each other. They are all totally distinct songs. Really impressive songwriter is Jeff Lynne. Which brings us to our final point here. Why isn't ELO bigger? These songs are really well known and well loved, and they did okay on the charts, but as I mentioned earlier, this song only got to number 35 on the main singles chart in the States. That's inexcusable, America! As I was mooching around in my car going to work the other day, I was reflecting on this, and I think there are a number of reasons that ELO isn't bigger than they are. The first is that Jeff Lynne is kind of a sweet, simple, humble, and shy man, and that sort of lack of a bombastic attitude and personality doesn't lend itself very well to lots of media coverage or even interviews. Like, when he's interviewed, he just answers the questions in a very straightforward way, by comparison against someone like Johnny Rotten, who was very poorly behaved in interviews.
Can I tell you what he said about you? No, I don't want to know. It's irrelevant. The voice of the ranting and the raving, obsequious, jealous, does not appeal to me. Next.
You couldn't look away. Even the sunglasses. He always wears sunglasses, regardless of whether it's blue skies or dead of night. I thought that he had some sort of eye condition, but it turns out that he's just shy. You know, he just wanted to hang out in his studio and make good music, and more power to him. Another point I thought is that Jeff Lynne is, in a sense, a musician's musician. He's one of those people who has the full vision of the creative project, whatever that may be, in his head before he's even hit the recording studio. There aren't a whole lot of artists who are like this, and is a sort of true DIY musician in that he really loves to do all of this himself. He's doing the production, he's arranging the strings. He ended up re-recording a whole bunch of ELO songs and just played everything himself because he didn't feel like he did it well enough the first time around. Very few artists who have that kind of clarity of artistic vision and the skills to do it all themselves. I can only think of 3 others off the top of my head, and they are Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, and Stevie Wonder. He's often doing more than you might realize because he is taking his prodigious skill and his profoundly complete creative vision and nestling it within very catchy, very accessible pop songs. So I think a lot of musicians can probably appreciate that he's a bit of a genius, that he's quite brilliant, whereas a lot of people might listen to Evil Woman or Strange Magic or, you know, the big hits and go, ah, what a good song. I don't know why, but it's a great song. So I hope that over the course of this mini-series, I've been able to bring to light some of those elements that I think demonstrate that Jeff Lynne is an incredible artist and visionary. So I guess my question for you this week is, before watching this series, did you think that Jeff Lynne was a genius? And has the mini-series changed your mind at all? Doesn't matter if it hasn't, I just want to hear what you have to say. As I hope you were able to see, talking about how challenging it was to rearrange this song for a 7-piece band. This music, I think, is best enjoyed with a full orchestra. They were recording with a full orchestra. But I think that taking that lineup was probably fantastically cost prohibitive. So when they did take this music on the road, they had to pare down the band to like 1 violin and 1 cello and drums and bass and guitar, and it just wouldn't have done it justice. Knowing what a perfectionist this man was, it must have been so disappointing to hear his grandiose music reduced to this sort of an empty, hollow ghost of what he had recorded. Obviously, he has enough money now because he has recently done a number of big shows like Glastonbury and Hyde Park with a much more fleshed out orchestra, and people have really loved it. I mean, look at these very British people having the time of their lives. I think I was on the right track because this morning I found this video of Jeff Lynne saying pretty much exactly that.
On the record there was 30-piece string section and probably a 20-piece choir on some songs. Pianos, guitars and choirs, trying to do it with 7 people, you know, which wasn't very easy to recreate that, so I wasn't very happy with the sound. No, I didn't like it at all. The live sound, it was just not much fun for me.
So we've reached the conclusion of the ELO mini-series. I hope that you had a really good time. I certainly had a really good time. And that of course means that next week, my excitement is indescribable. If you enjoyed this episode and or would like to support the weird things that I do, I'll leave a link in the description for my Buy Me a Coffee page, where you are most welcome to make a donation, but no pressure, friends. I have one more point before I go today. If any of you can identify who is on my shirt, you win my eternal respect. That's it for me. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you here next week. Have a great weekend! I really think that as a band, it should be far more highly... I think that it should be far more... I think it should be high... Electric Light Odyssey. Orchestra Odyssey. No, that doesn't work at all.